on 110a, and we're at the Gemara, 2/3 of the way down the page.
110a, you say?
Yep. Right after the Mishnah. Okay. Very briefly to summarize the Mishnah, you have to pay if you make a Shavuos sheker on a stolen item. You lie about a stolen item under oath. You need to repay Karen, principal. You need to give an atonement of a chaimesh and an asham.
Chomesh again is?
A fifth.
Got it. Okay.
And asham is a sacrifice.
Mm.
Now, like we spoke about yesterday, they have to be given to the Kohanim of that mishmar, and they must be brought together. You can bring the money before the sacrifice, but not the sacrifice before the money.
Right.
And the fifth is not a requirement. It's you can achieve an atonement even without paying the fifth. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Says the Mishnah, says the Gemara, Osham. So if you look at the verse refers to Osham. Osham is an atonement. Zekeren. That's the principle. Hamushav, that's returned. Zechaimish, this refers to the fifth. Maybe Osham refers to the sacrifice, not to the principle. So the Gemara says, what would be the difference? To show the opposite of Rava. Rava says because the return of this, so if you steal from a convert, the principal is paid to the Kohanim. Says Rava that if you made the payment at nighttime or you made half a payment, it's not valid. Why? Because it's called an asham. An asham is like an atonement sacrifice, so it has the same rules as an atonement sacrifice. Just like an atonement sacrifice has to be done by day, and you have to bring a complete sacrifice. You can't share it with somebody else. So therefore, lo yotza. Might have asham kariyach. Now, if, however, the asham, the word asham was not referring to the principle, it was referring to the fifth, then Rava would not have a source for his argument. Because if the word asham means principle, so we treat the principle as if it were a sacrifice. It has to be given by day. But if the word asham does not refer to the principle, it refers to the fifth, then there's no source to adduce the concept that you have to pay by day. Okay, when the verse says besides for the sacrifice, I see from here that the word asham refers to the karen, the principle. Tanya Idach, another brayse says asham zekeren. Asham refers to the karen, the principle. Hamushav, that's returned. Zechaimish is the fifth. Asham zechaimish. Maybe perhaps the word asham refers to the fifth. Hamushav, that's returned, refers to the principle. The What would be the difference? To show the opposite of the Mishnah. If I switch around the verse, the Mishnah says that you must give the principle to have an atonement. But the fifth is not a requirement. But if we change around this verse and say that the word asham refers to the fifth and hamushav refers to the principle, so then to the contrary, the fifth would be critical, the principle would not be critical. If we would change the verse, if we would say that the word asham refers to the fifth and mushav refers to the principle, so then the fifth would be a requirement for the atonement, and the principle would not be. That sounds a little bit odd, right? So you come to the resolution that a fifth is a requirement. When the verse says you return the asham first and then you add the fifth. Well, clearly asham refers to the principle because it says you give back the asham and then you add the fifth. Well, clearly the asham is not the fifth. Have you ever Osham Zakaran? Tiny Idach, another Bryce says Osham Zakaran. Osham refers to the Karen. Hamusha that's returned. Zachaimish that refers to the fifth. Ubegezel Hagera Kosam Medaber. And we're referring to an item stolen from a convert that when he has to repay for lying under oath, he pays to the Kahanim. Maybe you're actually referring to paying back the convert directly, and referring here to paying kefil. So Gemara says, "Kishu oimer v'heshav esasham b'roishai v'chamishitze harei b'maman hamishtal b'roish akosav medaber." When the verse says you pay back the principal and then you add a fifth, clearly we're referring to the type of payment that does not require kefil. Okay, Gufa.
Are we trying to use the term
Asham.
is referring to the principle as opposed to
Yeah.
but it should refer to a sacrifice.
So Asham is sort of a sin offering, and
Okay.
this is so the verse clearly indicates this too. It says you give the Asham back, and also there's an Eila Kippurim, there's also sacrifice. Clearly, the Asham in the first part does not refer. Typically, you're right. Typically, the word Asham refers to an Asham offering, but over here, the Asham sin offering refers to the principle, because that's part of the offering. Like we said in the Mishnah, it's paying back the principle is a requirement for the sin offering to work. If you don't pay back, we'll soon see which one has to go first, and we'll discuss that like we discussed yesterday. We'll get to that. Okay, Gufa, the original source. You give back the monies by nighttime, you don't fulfill your obligation. If you pay back half, you don't fulfill the obligation. My time, because the Torah calls it a sin offering, you have to do it by day and you have to do it complete. This is a very interesting one. So you have a mishmar, right? You have a family within the Kahanim. There are, let's say, hundreds or thousands of members to the group, right? Large family. They've been. It was that. Yeah, I'm saying that they've been. It's one family back. In Moshe Rabbeinu's days. At a later point in time, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of people in every group. Okay, so what does Rava say? You have to give back to every member of this family, the mishmar. Every member must get at least 25 cents, the shava pruta. So that sort of creates a minimum threshold, and that could be a reasonable amount of money. Okay, so Rava says, you have to give a quarter to every kayan, a minimum amount. My time at the siv ha'osham hamushav. You have to give a return. You have to give a payment. If it's less than a shava pruta, it's not a payment. And what Rava looks at the individual kayan as a payment. We don't say it's one payment to the entire mishmar, because then you can give a quarter to the entire mishmar. Because it's a payment to each kayan, so therefore each kayan has to get at least a quarter. Boy Rava says, "Ain by the mishmeres yahariv v'yesh by the mishmeres yidaya." So he pointed out there are 24 families. The name of the first family was Yahariv. The name of the second family was Yedaya. So basically, Yedaya apparently was smaller, or at least hypothetically, Yedaya was smaller than Yahariv. So he has, let's say, his entire thievery is, let's say, it's $100, right? If my math is correct, that's 500 quarters, right? I'm sorry, is it 400 quarters?
How much?
$100, 400 quarters. So he, and Yahariv, let's say, has 450 members. Right, so it's not going to work. He doesn't cut it, but Yedaya has 350 members.
Each one of them has a mishmar.
So mishmar is a family.
Is the mishmar those two together?
No, so mishmar is each family is its own week. The mishmar literally means like the watch, but
the ones who are currently the mission.
Right. But
So
each
why is he talking two together.
so what happens is he's basically he owes, how much do we say he owes? He owes $100, which is 400 quarters. And so now this week is Yahariv. Yahariv brings with it 450 members, which means that each member will get less than a quarter apiece. So Rav wants to know, does he have to wait till next week to go wait till Yitzidaya's turn, which only has 350 members, where everyone can get a quarter?
Get a better deal.
No, yeah, he saves money, right? Because if he goes to Yedaya, he has to bring 450 quarters, 400 for the thing, and then he has to make sure everybody gets 25 cents.
Was this time span there just a week?
I'm sorry.
The time span there is just a week?
So they rotate a week in, a week out. There are
Yeah.
24 families, so every mishmar gets to serve roughly, two and change.
Gotcha.
Now, there's also another catch, which is that there's a whole separate discussion about holidays, how that works. That's the end of Masechta Sukkah, if you remember. It's a while back. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so what exactly is going on? Are you giving it to Yedaya in week number 2? If you are, like, what's wrong with that? Okay, no. He gave it to Mishmar of Mishmar 2 in Mishmar 1's turn in week 1, which is against the rules, really. Because it's not the correct mishmar. You didn't give it to the right family in the right week. It's nothing. Since you can't anyway go give it to Yehorav, so therefore you can give it to Yedaya. And the resolution is take it, let it stand.
Oh, great.
Boy Rafam. And this goes back to Gemara in Kedushin, and we also, I think, briefly spoke about it in Sukkah. The general rule is as follows. Okay, so let's say we have let's make hypothetically we have a busy day for the Gehanim, and this day there's 2 Tmidim, right? There's a Tamid in the morning, a Tamid in the afternoon, basic sacrifices. Technically speaking, that's all you need. You can have a day with just 2 sacrifices. But this day there's a lot of people. There's 150 sacrifices. And you figure it's a lot of meat going around. Let's say, for argument's sake, there's 250 pounds of meat. Or probably more than that. You have a number, probably 500. It's 100 animals. It's probably at least 800 pounds of meat for the Kehanim. Okay, big barbecue. So you think, here's a very good solution. Every Kohen should get, let's say there are 400 Kehanim that week. So every Kohen gets 2 pounds of meat. Sounds good? No, it doesn't work that way. Obviously, right? Doesn't work that way. How does it work? Every sacrifice is divided on its own. There's no, I take this, you take that. Doesn't work that way. Each one is divided on its own, which means that they have a lineup for sacrifice number 1. Whoever wants to come to take a piece gets to take a piece. And then they have for number 2. And everyone's divided up into all 400 people, however many want to participate. And you're not allowed to trade one sacrifice for another sacrifice. You can't say, well, I'll go to this one and I'll give you a piece, and you go to me and that one and you give me a piece of that one. No, it doesn't work that way. You're not allowed to trade. Together?
Okay.
Reading lunch is a school. Not allowed.
So now here's the question. So the question basically is, does the same rule apply to Gez Lager? Money is really fungible. Meat is somewhat fungible, especially if they're similar animals, similar cuts. But money is a prime example of fungibility. So what's the story? Can they split up this payment, this atonement for stealing from a convert? Can they add all the money together or just make one big division? Do we say do we say it's like a sacrifice where you cannot do this? Or do you say no, it's money, it's fungible, doesn't make a difference. It's fine, it's all the same money. It's all money. It's called a sacrifice, and you have to split each one on its own. Whoever wants to take a piece gets a piece of money, whatever, gets some money, and then you go to the next division of the ger of a different convert, and you divide it up again. Whoever wants to take, you take. Ravacha, the son of Rava, had this as a specific statement. Rava said, Kahanim ein chalkin gezel agar can gezel agar. My time ma'oshim kari rachmana. Kahanim cannot split up. They can't group together all the gezel agar of one day, because the Torah calls it a sacrifice which cannot be split. Okay, now we get to an interesting question. Boy Rava, Kahanim begezel agar yarshin hava or mekabel matana. Okay, so let's review this again. So what happened? Reuben steals from the convert, right? He lies under oath. He admits he lies. The convert is now deceased, and he has to give the gift to the Kahanim. How do we look at the Kahanim receiving this gift? Do we consider it as if the Kahanim are the inheritors of the convert? Now, in truth, obviously the Kahanim don't directly inherit a convert, and moreover, the Kahanim only get the money of somebody who lies under oath about robbery. Right? If a convert has a car and does not have any inheritors, then the car is ownerless. Whoever wants to take the car can take it. The only benefit the Kahanim get is when somebody lies under oath about stealing. Yeah. So are they inheritors, or do we say no? This is a gift. There are many gifts. As a matter of fact, there are 24 of them, and we'll see all of them soon.
Yeah.
Or do you say it's a gift? What's the difference? Okay, of course, our favorite customer. He stole chametz and owned the chametz over Pesach. If you say they're inheritors, okay, so basically, if that happens, then the principle is the chametz, and because chametz, you could say because they're inheritors, you could say meaning you can return the worthless chametz. However, but if you say it's a gift that God gave them, so like we said before, it has to actually be a gift, right? Meaning you have to actually give them something. But over here, he's not giving them anything because the offered ba'alma, it's earth. You can't use this. You cannot use this food because it's chametz that's been through Pesach in the hands of a Jew. Okay, so Rav Zeira boy hachi. Rav Zeira had the question as follows: even if you'll say that that they were considered to have been receiving gifts. This is not a question. Okay, in other words, everyone agrees sort of that it's considered a gift. What's the question? Okay, so this is an interesting one. The question is, let's say a guy gets 10 animals as repayment for different converts, or maybe the same convert. This guy stole 10 animals and he lied about it under oath. He has to repay 10 animals, which is what he did. He has to pay 50, whatever, he has to pay more, 12 and a half animals, okay, whatever it is. The guy gets a gift of 10 animals. Do you have to pay meiser or not? So what's meiser? Meiser refers to meiser behema. That's, you have to take off 1/10 of all the newborn animals. Meiser behema is taken off if the animals were received because of an inheritance. It's not taken off if you receive the animals for a gift.
No gift tax. Why?
For the first year.
Why the difference?
What?
Why the difference?
I don't know. The Torah does specify difference. I'm not sure what the spiritual reason is.
This 10th the 10th generally this 10th here is this go to the coin or is this
Correct. It goes to sacrifice.
okay? Is this like supposed to go to Jerusalem for this then? Yeah.
Correct. It would have to be. If it's a sacrifice, it has to be brought in Jerusalem. It's called
Okay,
meiser.
but beyond, would it be like for the pilgrimage festivals or?
So that's generally speaking when people brought them was generally speaking
Okay.
the pilgrimage
All right.
festivals. Yes, he had they called meiser behema, and yeah, they were generally brought them. Okay, so this you have these 10 animals you get for repayment of lying under oath about a convert's stolen property. So mechayev la'afrush minay meiser or loy. Do we have to take off meiser or not? Yarshin hava the amar mar kanu b'tfisis abayis chayavin. If you acquire it with inheritance, then you must pay for meiser. Idilma, you must take off meiser and bring it as sacrifices. Idilma like mekabel matana hava utana lakach manitlei matana potem meiser behema. If you buy the animals then you are exempt from Meiser Behema. And if you buy 10, what do they call it? Is it called kids? Is it baby sheep? Kid. You buy 10 kids, then you do not have to take off Meiser. It's only when they were born to you, or if you inherited it. So somebody inherits if somebody inherits his father, and his father has 10 kids born that year, he has to take off Truma. I'm sorry, he has to take off Meiser Behema. But if he received it as a gift or he bought 10 kids, he doesn't have to take off. So the question is this considered an inheritance? The 10 kids that you get returned, or is it considered a gift?
Is that the same for all Meiser? Anything that's a gift doesn't need to be. Or is it just
I don't
this
think so. I
situation?
think it's just this one. That's a good point to make. Thank you for asking. Okay. Now I'm just going to summarize the Gemara before we get to the end. The answer basically is that it's a gift. It's a complete gift. Why is this? Because it's listed with all 24 gifts. And now we'll go through all 24 of them. Toshma. There are 24 gifts of kahuna that were given to Aaron and his children. The kula nitnu b'chlal upratu klal ubris melach. Okay. When the Torah refers to 24 gifts, there is a klal upratu klal, meaning they're all categorized in one group. They're given as a collective statement with 24 specifics, followed by a collective statement. And they're also compared to bris melach. What is bris melach? Bris melach is the covenant of salt. It's a requirement that every sacrifice that's brought, every single type of sacrifice must have salt on it. Okay, and the sort of idea here is that kol ha-mekayim, and whoever fulfills any one of the 24 gifts of to a kohen, it's as if he fulfilled all 24 gifts of kahuna, which are given in klal prat klal, and also it's as if he brought every type of sacrifice, because the laws of the 24 gifts of kahuna are compared to the bris melach, the covenant of salt, even though technically they have nothing to do with each other, right? The covenant of salt has to do with sacrifices, not it has nothing to do with the gifts of a kohen, but they're in the same verse. It's as if you brought all the 24 gifts and you brought every single type of sacrifice. So it's a tremendous amount of reward for keeping these laws. Someone who transgresses them, it's as if he violated every one of the 24 and he violated every single sacrifice. The Elohim, what are the 24? Eser b'mikdash, there are 10 inside the temple, 4 b'Yerushalayim, Eser b'Gvulan, and 10 in Israel outside of Jerusalem. Eser b'mikdash, the 10 in the temple. Okay, chatas behema, number 1, they get to eat a chatas. Number 2 is chatas oif, birds that they get to eat. V'oshem vadai, a certain sin offering. V'oshem toloi, a sin offering that's brought over a doubtful transgression. V'ziv cheshal metzibur, they get to enjoy the eating from the sacrifice, the shlomim sacrifices of the community. V'lug shemen shel mitzayra, the mitzayra brings a measurement of oil. The leftovers are given to the kohen. U'meiser ha'omer, the leftover sacrifice of the korban ha'omer, which is brought on at Pesach. U'shtei halachem, the leftovers of the 2 breads which are brought on Shavuos. V'lachem hapadim, the leftovers of the showbreads which are brought weekly. The shiori mincha, the leftovers of every mincha. So leftovers meaning God gets a certain portion, and the rest are given to the kahanim to eat.
Mincha here refers to a
Mincha is
offering, or mincha is a non-meat offering.
It's a good way to say it. Yeah, generally speaking, a mincha is comprised of 3 parts, but not necessarily. The general 3 parts are flour, oil, and frankincense.
Okay.
However, there could be a mincha that's just of oil, or a mincha that's just of flour, etc. But it's a good way to phrase it. It's a non-meat offering. Okay, that's 10. V'arba b'Yerushalayim, there are 4 in Jerusalem. Habachayra, they get to benefit from the firstborn. That's brought as a sacrifice. They get to eat from the animal. V'habikurim, if you bring up the bikurim, that's the first cuttings of the crop. V'hamurim min ha'toida ve'el nazar. This really counts as 1. The certain parts of a toida offering. There are 40 breads with a toida offering. One of each 4 types. Each type has 10 breads. One of each type, 4 breads in total, are given to a kohen. So he gets that, and he gets certain parts of the nazir offering. And because these are similar, they get put in one category, so we don't have 5. V'aris kadashim, and 4 is the skins of the sacrifices. The sacrifices that are called kachei kachim. These are the highest level sacrifices, an olah and a chatos, a sin offering. The skins go to the kahanim. For lower level offerings like a shlomim, then it goes to the owner. The owner who brings the sacrifice gets to keep the skins. V'asara b'gvula, and 10 gifts outside of Jerusalem in Israel. Truma, that's the first of the tithes. Trumas meiser, right? It's a tithe off of the meiser. The challah, taking off a portion of the dough. Reishis agez is the first shearings of an animal. The hamatonos. One second. Matonos are matonos are certain portions of the animal. If a person slaughters an animal, certain portions are given to a kayan. Upidin aben, redeeming of the firstborn. Upidin peter chamar, redeeming a firstborn donkey. Ustei achuza, if somebody sanctifies a field and does not redeem it, after Yovel, it goes to the Kehanim. Ustei charamim, if Yisrael dedicates his field to the temple fund, the gezel ager, and the payment for somebody lying under oath about stealing from a convert, the kakarle mia matana, and this brisa clearly indicates it as a type of gift. Shema mina mikabas matana hava is a gift, and therefore it is exempt from ma'aser behema. Okay, nasan akesef anshim mishmar. Okay, so Abaya says, Shemami no kesef. Okay, so what happened was the guy he returns the money to the mishmar, and then he dies. The robber dies. So he did not have a chance to bring his atonement sacrifice, but he gave the money already. We say the money is already given as a gift, and he cannot request it he cannot request that it be returned.
Who's he?
The robber's kids.
Oh, it was kid.
The estate.
So he did.
Yeah, he's dead.
Why would they be able to request that?
Because they want to argue that he never had an atonement, because he never got a chance to bring a sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
If you require both to have an atonement, then he only made half. He only basically brought half. He's not getting an atonement anyway. Well, they can enjoy the money.
Mhm.
So Amar Baya Shramina Kesef Mechaper Mechza. We see from here that money is an atonement, is a half atonement. The Eli Mechaper, because if it's zero, then Havamin and Mahadali Yarshim. I would think that it should have to be returned to the inheritors. My time, he would not be giving this money if he's not getting an atonement. It should be obvious that he's not giving the money. If he gets half an atonement, so then it's necessary. Obviously, he's giving the money even if he dies. But if he's not getting any atonement at all, then he would not be giving the money.
Wait, who's he?
This is the robber. The robber is only giving the money back to the Kahanim to get an atonement. If he gets no atonement at all, then presumably he would never have given the money. So the Gemara questions this logic. Yeah, okay, Elameata. If that's the case, so in other words, we have this idea that if he gets zero atonement, then he would not have done what he did. Is that idea true? Elameata chatas shemesa bala. You have a chatas, a sin offering, that where the owner, the one who committed the sin, dies. So then tepik lechulin, the animal should be no longer sanctified. He never would have separated a sin offering if he knew he was going to die before he had a chance to bring it. So the Gemara says, we have a special oral tradition that such an animal is killed. You can't ask a question. This is the tradition. This is how it is. So the Gemara says, okay, well, similarly, Osham is another type of sin offering where the owner dies. It should become no longer sanctified. Had he known that he would be dying before he brought the sacrifice, he would never have separated it. So therefore, it should not have any sanctification. This is Abaya's logic, right? Abaya says, had he known, he would have never given them the money. So apply the same logic here. It should never be sanctified. So Gemara says, you're right, but it's also an oral tradition. So we can't really ask any questions. That's the tradition. The tradition is that an animal that by a chatas it gets killed, this would be an animal where the owner dies. So by an osham, the animal we allow it to pasture until it gets a wound, and then we redeem it and bring a separate sacrifice in its place. Okay. Okay, so Gemara has another alternative. What happened here? So you're familiar with the laws of Yibum, right? A woman dies I'm sorry, a husband dies without children.
Mhm.
He gets married, he doesn't have children, he dies. His brother can marry the Yavama. That would be the deceased brother's wife.
What do they call it, levirate marriage?
Levirate marriage.
Yeah.
It's even like it's a mitzvah, right? Or
It is a mitzvah,
Yeah.
correct. Now, let's say the brother in question is a mukashchen. He has severe blisters. The Gemara proposes that these blisters could be rubbing off on her as well if she ends up marrying him. So then we should say she should leave without chalitza. Why? Because had she known that her former husband died, her deceased husband would have died, she never would have married him, because she would not want to end up in a levirate marriage with this guy with the blisters. So Gemara says, no, it's not true. It's not true. A woman would want to get married to her first husband, even if that's a possibility. Rish Lakish pointed out, a woman would rather be married than stay single. And therefore, even if this was a possibility, she still would want to get married to her first husband. Okay. That being said, the Gemara has not revoked the logic of Abaya, and Abaya remains correct. In other words, paying the money is a half atonement. And therefore, the guy has half an atonement even after he dies, and that's why the money does not go back to the inheritors.
It would also be a weird reason not to marry somebody. Your brother isn't someone.
Yeah, well, the question is, let's say you would have known at the time that you're getting married that this would be the fact.
Oh, that he was
Going to die. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nosan as a kesef li'yahariv. You gave the money to Yahariv. Okay. Tanar Rabbanan. Nosan osham li'yahariv v'kesef li'yadaya. So again, Yahariv equals week number 1. Yadaya equals week number 2. So what did he do? He brought a big problem here. He brought the sacrifice in week 1. He brought the money in week 2. Yachzer kesef eitzel osham.
You can't do that.
Correct. Yachzer kesef eitzel osham. We'll have to quantify exactly what this means. So again, we have sacrifice 1, money 2. So what does Rabbi Yehudah propose? First opinion, Yachzer kesef eitzel osham. The week 2 guys have to give the money to the week 1 guys. How did that work out? We'll discuss this exactly. The story might not be exactly as I'm describing right. Well, the question is, when did he give it? Did he give the money to week 2 in week 1? To Yedaya, which is week 2 in week 1, or otherwise? Okay, we'll have to see that. Rabbi Yehudah, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehudah. The rabbis say the opposite. Yachzer osham eitzel kesef. The sacrifice goes to the money, right? So Yahariv gives, which is 1, it gives the sacrifice to the people in 2. That would be Yedaya. Hechidami, what's the scenario? Okay, so let's get at it. If you'll say that we gave the sacrifice to Yahariv to week 1, b'mishmarta Yahariv on week 1. So the kesef Yedaya mishmarta Yedaya, and he gave the money to Yedaya week 2 on week 2. Well, each one got its gift in its week. What exactly are you supposed to do? So I'm Rav Achmai Eskinan. You have Osham liYahariv mishmarta Yahariv, the kesef Yedaya mishmarta Yahariv. Okay, so what Rava says is what happened was he gave the sacrifice in week 1 to Yahariv, which is the week 1 group, and he gave the money to Yedaya in week 1. Yedaya is the week 2 group. So according to the rabbi, still the sacrifice gets pushed to Yedaya, who will bring it in week 2. And according to Rabbi Yehudah, no, Yedaya has to give the money to Yahariv of week 1. Rabbi Yehudah saw Rakim the law of Mishmeres the Yedaya Hili Yedaya Kansina, because it's not the week of Yedaya. Yedaya is week 2, and it's now in week 1. So therefore, we penalize Yedaya and make them give the money to Yahariv. Therefore, the money goes back to the sacrifice. For Rabban Savri Shalekadin who offered Bnei Yahariv. Yahariv broke the rules. Why? The Kibbutz Hashem Mekame Kesef. They should never have accepted a sacrifice without the money. So therefore, we say Yahariv has to give the sacrifice to Yedaya, which will bring it the next week. The sacrifice goes to the money, which will be in week 2. Tanya, we put some limitations here on Rav Yehudah. Amar Rebbe says the Divrei Rabbi Yehudah. According to Rabbi Yehudah's opinion, if Yahariv went in week 1 and brought the sacrifice, he has to bring a second sin offering. v'zochu halolu b'mashav yodon. Then week 2 has to bring another sacrifice. Now hold on a second. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is the money goes to the sacrifice. So why do you have to bring a second sacrifice? Yedaya should give the money to the first group. So, what? Okay, okay. However, that the first group, since they brought the sacrifice, they get to keep the sacrifice. So Gemara says, Amri l'may chazi, what exactly do you use the money for? So Gemara says, so what exactly how can you benefit from an invalid sin offering? So Rava says, La'orai, for the skins. Tanya, we learned in a brayso. Amar Rabbi, Ladiv Rabbi Yehudah, Imkayim Osham, Yachzer Osham Eitzel Kesef. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so now the brayso we just saw, where you bring a second sin offering, that's in a scenario where you haven't yet given the money, and the sacrifice was brought anyway. So you brought Yehorav brings the sacrifice, which they should not have done, and now Yedaya gets the money, but the sacrifice has already been brought. Even if it's in week 1 and Yedaya gets the money, still he has to bring a second sacrifice to Yedaya in week 2.
And the sacrifices from week 1, even though they're invalid, can only be utilized for those skins.
Yeah, and the first group gets to keep it. So Yehorav will get to keep it. Okay. Yeah, correct. Because the sacrifice is invalid. Tanya, Amar Rabbi says, L'divrei Rabbi Yehudah, yeah. Imkayim Osham, Yachzer Osham Eitzel Kesef. According to Rabbi Yehudah, the sacrifice follows the money. Gemara says, what? Rabbi Yehudah says the opposite. The money follows the sacrifice. Okay, so Gemara says, simple proposal. Okay, the money goes to the sacrifice if it's still in week 1. But if week 1 is over, the sacrifice follows the money. Because they didn't ask the money, they didn't ask Yedaya for the money in week 1, then therefore they have to hand the sacrifice over, and they've forgiven the money and the sacrifice, and it's going to go to Yedaya in week 2. Okay, we have one more limitation. Tanya Idach Amar Rabbi. Rabbi says, L'div Rabbi Yehudah Imkayim Osham Yachzer Kesef Eitzel Osham. If the sacrifice is still around, the money goes to the sacrifice. So Gemara says, Pshita, obviously, that is exactly Rabbi Yehudah's opinion. The money goes to the sacrifice. So Gemara says, very interesting one. Hachi Yislay, Pshita Hachi Yislay. So Gemara says, Hachmai Eskinan. It's exactly Rabbi Yehudah's statement. So Gemara says, Rabbi is referring to another possibility. What happened was, Yehorav got the sacrifice. He didn't bring it. Then the end of the week. So Yehorav stopped. Then Yedaya got the money. For some reason, Yedaya didn't either bring the sacrifice. And the week is over. Now it's week 3. So what happens? We wait the full another 22 weeks, and Yehorav gets both the sacrifice and the money. Week number 1. I would think they've both forgiven any rights and privileges over it. No, they haven't. And it goes back to the first one. Yehorav. Yehorav is week number 1. The next time we start the 24-week cycle, Yehorav comes in first, and he gets to the sacrifice and the money. Okay. Finish the tomorrow. Have a great day.